Hello everyone, I'm coming to you again from the church, and you'll notice that if you come by in this time that the main crucifix and the different statues and images are veiled for the last 2 weeks in the season of Lent. This time is called Passiontide, a time where we enter more into the meditation on the Lord's Passion. In the traditional liturgy, which is celebrated, it's known as Passion Sunday, and then a week from today is called Palm Sunday, and the second Sunday of the Lord's Passion. I want to explain to you a little bit about the custom of veiling crosses and images in these last 2 weeks of Lent. In the traditional liturgy, which of course is still celebrated by many of our brothers and sisters, in the traditional Latin Mass in the church, and also for those who follow the traditional calendar in the church, or like myself, kind of a mix where I celebrate with the parish community the new calendar, but follow in the breviary the old traditional calendar. But I want to explain where it comes from in the church tradition from the gospel reading that is used today, that in the Novus Ordo, the new order of the Mass that we're accustomed to, most of us, is the fifth Sunday of Lent, but in the traditional liturgy is the first Sunday of the Passion. And the gospel reading is from the 8th chapter of the Gospel of John, verses 46 to the end, verse 59. I won't read the whole thing, but the context is a controversy between Jesus and the Pharisees. If you want to read the whole controversy and debate back and forth between Jesus and the Pharisees, you can start at verse 12 in chapter 8, and it continues through the end of the chapter. But the final verse, after a lot of back and forth between Jesus and the Pharisees, the final verse is this moment where Jesus is under threat already to be killed by the Pharisees. The final verse of this passage says, "So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid and went out of the temple area." Jesus hid and went out of the temple area. So we see it speaking of the Passion because already the threat that Jesus is under, that they want to kill him, but Jesus went away from their sight. He hid, he disappeared from them. And so because of the gospel reading on this Sunday, then developed the custom of the hiding of the image of Jesus and of the other saints as well, the veiling of images. And there's a long custom of veiling for different reasons in the church, of veiling things that are sacred, that are holy. Many of those traditions have fallen away in many parishes where there were more often used tabernacle veils, chalice veils, veiling the chapel veils for women, veiling sacred images in the last Sundays of Lent, the last 2 weeks of Lent, veiling what is holy in a sense of the tradition, the biblical tradition that we see so often. Moses, for instance, after he would go to the meeting tent and would be filled with the glory of God and be radiant, he would have to veil his face to cover that glory so the people were not too scared of him. The veil in the temple, the veil that separated the area for the priests and the people, but that veiled the Holy of Holies, the most holy part of the temple. Tradition, the biblical tradition and church tradition of different times of veiling what is holy. That's also seen in the traditional Latin Mass and in the new Mass, whenever the Mass is celebrated ad orientem, where part of the celebration of the liturgy is hidden in a sense. The sacredness of it, the holiness of it, is veiled. The people, because of the orientation of the priest and people, and you can refer to the previous video I did on turning to the Lord, that part of the sacredness of that moment is veiled, and that's even the low voice of the priest and offering the holy sacrifice to God. as something holy and sacred and given to God. And so there's something of a secretness, of a hiddenness that maintains part of the mystery of the sacred liturgy as well. In these last weeks of Lent, the veiling of images is part of the sense of preparing for the Lord's passion, death, and resurrection, and entering into this sense of Jesus undergoing his passion, Jesus who we can relate to in our trial in the church today, where it seems Jesus in some ways is hidden from our sight. We don't have the public celebration of the Eucharist where we are able to come close to the Lord as we are used to. But what remains for us? Of course, we know the presence of the Lord in the tabernacle. We have the cross veiled, we have the statues veiled, but the tabernacle is here. The sanctuary lamp is lit. The Lord Jesus is present here. At times in our spiritual lives and in this time in the church, we might seem like the Lord is somewhat hidden or veiled from our eyes. But I encourage you to come and spend time with the Lord, who is here with us in the gift of his presence, his real presence in his body and blood, soul and divinity. There's a line from a traditional Eucharistic hymn called Ave Verum Corpus, Hail True Body, or Hail True Flesh, a Latin hymn of Eucharistic adoration. And it speaks of, in one of the verses of that hymn, that Jesus, as he was on earth, that his divinity was hidden from our eyes. We can think of Christ's own body as a veil for his divinity. His divinity was hidden beneath his humanity. But as we worship and adore the presence of the Lord in the Eucharist, even his humanity is hidden from us. Both his divinity and humanity are hidden from our eyes when, by faith, we know the presence of the Lord Jesus, his real presence with us in the Eucharist that we come to worship and adore. In the traditional Latin Mass, in the traditional calendar of the Church, and in the traditional custom of the Church with the veiling of images, we echo that sense of the mysteries of the Lord that are hidden from us, the plan of the Lord that is hidden from our eyes. But we know the end of the story. We know Christ has won the victory. We know Easter comes after the Lord's passion. We know the Lord will restore his church once again and bring us back, help us to grow in our faith, to be able to come and worship with greater reverence, with greater joy, to be able to gather again as our community of faith, to come and worship the living Lord. So as you come to the church in this time, notice the veils, enter into the mystery of this time, but know the Lord is here as we come to worship him. May God bless you.